Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Laser Light Show. In today's episode, we have special guest, Dr. Michael Trayford and Manteo Mitchell. Let's get started.
Growing up in Portland, Oregon, I used to love going to laser light shows at the Oregon Museum of Science and Industry. They would put on these amazing light shows with incredible designs synced up to some of my favorite music. From the Beatles to Pink Floyd to Jimi Hendrix and Metallica, they were awesome. Little did I know then that lasers would have such a profound effect in my life decades later. As a chiropractic physician, I have seen firsthand just how powerful laser therapy is at helping patients struggling with a wide range of health problems. As the leader in laser therapy, Erchonia has pioneered the field in obtaining 20 of the 23 total FDA clearances for therapeutic application of lasers. On this podcast, we'll explore the science and technology and physiology behind what makes these tools so powerful. Join me as we explore low-level laser therapy. I'm Dr. Chad Woolner, along with my good friend Dr. Andrew Wells, and welcome to the Laser Light Show.
Welcome, guys.
Hello, hello.
Thanks for having us.
So, Dr. Trayford, I think this is your third episode?
I think so. Yeah, you guys might be getting tired of me soon.
I think no, you have awesome episodes, and I think you're maybe tied with Dr. Kirk Gare.
Oh wow,
he's 3 or 4, and I know you guys did a joint episode not too long ago.
All right, well let's look to do some more then.
Yeah, and really excited about today's episode. We have a really special guest. I was going to say Dr. Manteo Mitchell. We can promote you today. One day, the next thing we're going to tackle. Welcome to the show. Great to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So for those of you listening who may not have heard of Manteo Mitchell, you're wearing a cool necklace, first of all. Maybe explain a little bit about your background and who you are.
Yeah, so again, my name is Manteo Mitchell. I am Olympic silver medalist in the sport of track and field. Most people would know me from the 2012 Olympic Games in London, where I competed in the 4x400 meter relay for Team USA. And on the opening leg of the 4x4, I was running and my left fibula bone snapped, and I continued running, and by doing so we achieved an Olympic record in the event, and then the team went on to get the silver medal the next day. So I have a medal from that, and I am now into the sport of bobsled, which is just crazy to even be saying, but yeah, so I've made the transition over to another different track, which is the ice. So we're looking to make history in becoming only the 7th individual ever to medal in both the Summer and Winter Olympic Games. But historically, I would be the first African-American male to do it. So that's what we're going for.
That's amazing. You know, we're here in North Carolina. You're from North Carolina, right?
Yeah, born and raised right here.
Not many people think of bobsledding in North Carolina. But really,
not at all. I've been getting a lot of weird looks and questions when people are like, well, where do you train at? Like, there's no ice here. I'm like, I don't actually train here for the actual ice part, but everything else is done here.
Yeah, and obviously you're a fast runner. You're an Olympic medalist, which is amazing. That's an amazing feat in and of itself, and that has much to do with bobsledding, I'm sure. The takeoff.
Yeah, most definitely. Obviously, there's a lot of science, a lot of input into actually getting that sled to propel, and obviously speed is one of those factors, one of the main factors, speed and power. So you got a lot of different athletes from a lot of different sports, but obviously track and field correlates the best as far as speed goes. So that's kind of how I was recruited over.
That's amazing. So I want to go back to 2012. This was your, I think everyone's probably heard of Kerry Strug. You had your Kerry Strug moment.
Yeah, I've heard that quite a bit.
I'm sure. Yeah, sorry to rehash something you've already heard. And I think people. I just remember that moment in the Olympics was amazingly inspiring. And track and field is one of those events that I think gets a lot of viewership, especially the 4x100. 4x400 is by far my favorite race, by the way.
We like that.
But everyone, I think most people remember the Kerry Strug moment where she's on the vault, lands her vault, breaks I forget what bone she broke, but it was maybe it was a fibula.
I don't know.
Same
I
bone,
can't
maybe?
Remember.
Ankle, maybe? I think it was an ankle.
It might have been an ankle somewhere in
but
there.
Stuck the landing, and it was incredibly inspirational, because when you're competing at that level and you break a bone but are still able to do something that's most people will never be able to do, is fly through the air or run a 44-second 400 and still finish, is pretty dang impressive. And so in that race, when was at what part of the 400 did your fibula snap?
200 mark. So
Wow.
halfway through the race.
Was there a moment that you thought, I'm not going to finish that? Like, did you know what happened, or was you just in the zone and like nothing was going to stop you at that point?
I was aware that something had taken place. Honestly, I thought, with hundreds of thousands of people, in the stands and it's loud, but I actually heard it. I felt it. I think more so than anything, I felt it. But, for me, like the way I train, the way that, that's been instilled in me, that quality of, finishing what you start. And then, I had 3 guys depending on me to bring that baton back. And I was like, you know what? As long as I get to this line, and really I played with my mind a little bit. I was like, if I knew the guys that I was running against, so I knew that if the guy I was in lane 3, so if the guy in lane 4, who was from Australia, if he didn't get away from me too much, and the guy from the Dominican Republic in lane 2, if he didn't catch me, then I would at least run 46 seconds. I knew that already, so I kind of just channeled that, and I was just like, you know what, I hate losing more than I love winning. So as long as I get to the line, I know the 3 guys behind me are going to do whatever it is we need to do to get back to the finish line and at least the top 3 spots to make it to the final. So that's kind of how I channeled that.
I watched that race last night on YouTube, and it's an incredible race. And the announcers are talking about like, oh, Manteo had a bad leg, and obviously didn't know.
Yeah, I had a bad leg
happened.
for sure.
Literally a bad leg, right?
Yeah, it's funny. One of those commentators is Otto Bolton, a really good friend of mine. Obviously, he participated in the sport for Trinidad and Tobago. And, of course, in the moment, they don't know what's going on. And they were expecting, not just me, but the U.S. team. We've never lost that event. The only time that we didn't contest the event in history up until that point was in 1980 for the Moscow Olympic Games, which we boycotted, or which were boycotted, and we didn't go. So I didn't want to be on the bad side of history as well. So, but of course, those guys don't know, in the moment what's going on. They were expecting me to go out and run anywhere from 43 high to 44 mid, something like that on a pop-off leg is what we would call it, the first leg. And little did I know, I ran 45.7, but 200 meters with that. But if you see the video, most people are like, that didn't happen. How? I don't see it. If you slow it down, you can see me kind of favoring one side over the other. And if you look at the actual exchange, you can visibly see and hear me screaming in pain. But the crazy thing is I wasn't able to just like lay down after that happened. I had to stand there and watch those 3 guys finish their leg. Then I had to walk up media, do interviews, all these good things. And there was one reporter that asked like, hey, what happened? There's something wrong with you, because they saw me limping. So I was trying to not show any pain, because I was taught like that, like no show of pain. Just don't eliminate this moment, because we tied with the Bahamas for an Olympic record in the prelim, which still stands to this day. And then they ended up going to the 1,000th and gave us the actual mark. So
Wait, that race was an Olympic record? Still
yeah,
an Olympic
for the
record?
preliminary race, yeah, it's still an Olympic record.
Wow. Wow, that's wild.
Yeah, I should start writing that down on things, but I don't. But yeah.
Yeah. So if that hadn't happened, that you guys probably would have crushed the Olympic record by at least maybe a second, maybe?
I don't know about crushing it. I think we obviously that was our goal, was to really go after that record. I mean, obviously we knew we were going to win. I mean, it's just a thing we just know. And the rich history obviously would show you that, but not only were we expected to win, but we were expected to go fast. And that prelim showed that we were going fast, even with me being about a 1.3 seconds off of what I could have run. So, yeah, I think about that from time to time, like what we could have accomplished. But I'll take any of the medals at this point.
Right.
It's very hard to come by.
And I'm sure it was probably tough for you to watch the finals then.
Yeah. I wasn't even allowed to be down there, but I snuck down there. I can say that now because there's nothing they can do about it. So I'm in crutches, just cheering my guys on, and obviously we brought in a replacement for me, and it just didn't work out. Bahamas just had a better aligned team at the time. So that last 100 of that race was very hard to watch, very, very hard to watch. But obviously I couldn't do anything about it. So I'm just blessed and privileged and honored to be able to say I represented my country. I represented everybody that believed in me, and even those who didn't. And proved them wrong, proved myself right. But more importantly, just being able to set a goal and achieve that goal at the highest degree that you can. And no matter if it was gold, silver, or bronze, I just wanted one. And I wasn't going to stop until I got it. So that's why I never stopped.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. So you looking back on that was 11 years ago?
Yeah.
And you're still
at it.
Out at it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm faster now. I'm stronger now. It's unreal. Now I don't run 400s anymore because
I was going to say,
the new
like,
sport, I don't need
your
that.
body type looks different.
Yeah.
You've
So
been
I
put on
was-
muscle since then?
Yeah, quite a bit. We were talking about this, Dr. Trayford and I, the last time I was in. In track and field, I was anywhere from 175 to 185, like max weight, somewhere in there. Through bobsled, I was 225 this season.
Wow.
So yeah, it's a lot of changes that I had to adapt to. It's like I'm in full dad bod mode now. Is what
You're proud of it.
what I feel like. Yeah, but I have a reason for it.
That's
So
right.
it's like
Your
really,
team's counting on you. Put on the belly.
yeah. But it was interesting.
You got to go to Hollywood and be one of these actors that puts it off real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And did it naturally too. So that's
Yeah.
the
There you
the
go.
cool thing. It was tough. It's really tough. My first year was really rough because obviously it's a transition. You don't really. I'm not used to that. I've never been that weight. I've never been over 200 pounds. So it's like, am I fat? Like, am I overweight, or am I being an Olympic athlete in another sport? So it took a while mentally to like get over that because I was so used to being like super chiseled and like muscles everywhere, and now it's like I'm developing new muscles in places I thought I'd never have them, and also it also looks like I'm a little chubby. So it's like, yeah, it's been interesting. So, but we're growing and adapting. That's all you have to do.
That's right. That's right. So how did the transition to bobsledding happen? Was this like a coach who recruited you? Like, how did you get into that?
So our current CEO is Aaron McGuire, and he actually came from track and field. He was a bobsledder as well, but he was over our national teams when I first turned pro and was with USATF. And so when he became CEO, we were actually on our way to a birthday surprise to the Outer Banks, which was awesome. And we were going to my namesake, which is Manteo, North Carolina. That's where my name came from. So we went there. I was surprised going there. And on the way there, I got a call from him saying, hey, we'd love for you to, it was like small talk. It's like, why is Aaron calling me? Like, I haven't talked to him in a while. What is he calling me for? And it was about bobsled. So he was offering me an invite to come up and like do a combine and like try out and all this stuff. And then obviously it was in the midst of like COVID restrictions and it's in New York. So it's like the worst idea ever. But I went up there, crushed the combine, did really well, and never slid. I never touched the ice because of the restrictions and things like that. So then fast forward to this past season, I just made the team, made the World Cup team, became a world champion in bobsled as well for push championships, and then went through the World Cup season, had a few podium finishes there. So it's been a challenging transition, but I think it's gonna be worth it in the end.
Did you watch bobsledding when you were a kid growing up on the Olympics?
I don't recall watching the winter sports at all.
Really?
Yeah, it was where I'm from. Like, it was just summer games, and you start building these idols that you kind of like follow. So I was following Michael Johnson even before I was in the sport of track and field. I was like, oh, he looks cool. I like his sunglasses. I like his gold shoes, and I kind of do that now. Like, that's like my thing. So I never really watched the winter games. Maybe some figure skating, but anything like bobsled, I didn't even know what that was. The only thing I knew from bobsled was cool runnings.
Right. Yeah, I remember that.
That's the only thing I knew. And surprisingly, I've come to know, either the relatives or some of those folks like personally, and then helping with the Jamaican bobsled team as well, because they made a revamp and came back last year, first time since that movie, or that recreation of that movie.
Sure.
So it was cool, like being able to be a part of that process. But to my surprise, a lot of that was factional. Like,
Really?
a lot of that was true. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Of course, they put the little Hollywood spin on it.
Sure.
But there was a lot of that was true. So it was really cool to like experience that and to be a part of that. Yeah.
That's wild. So you made the team without ever sliding on ice, essentially? Is that kind of how it went?
Technically, I ended up sliding on ice in Park City. like maybe 3 months later or something like that. It was a crazy experience. I don't know how I'm doing this, but it was different. If that's the word I always say, it was different. If you could imagine being put in a barrel and just being rolled down a hill, that's what it felt like. And I was like, oh, if this is the worst it can get, then I'll be okay. So,
How fast are you in this barrel?
We have gone over 90 miles per hour quite a few times.
Wow.
Yeah, the fastest track in the world is in Whistler, Canada. And yeah, I have good history there and bad history. I've crashed twice there in my first season, technically my first real race. It was weird.
I saw the video. It's
Holy smokes.
intense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Intense.
But I came out with just a few ice burns, no concussions, no brain injuries, none of that. A little bruised up, but I got right back in the sled the next day, and it happened again at the exact same spot, inverted, upside down, boom, 90 plus miles per hour. And then races were over. I got in the sled the very next week.
Wow.
Yep.
Now this is a 4-man team?
Yeah,
Two-man
that was
team?
4-man. That was 4-man.
Okay.
So I do 2-man and 4-man.
Okay. And are you the
I'm the brakeman.
What
So I'm
position?
the 4 guy. I'm at the very
Fourth
back.
guy.
Yep.
Okay. Got it. Wow.
Yeah.
When are the Winter Olympics coming up? I have no idea.
2026.
Okay.
So
okay.
we just had them in this last season, 2022, or last year. And now we'll prepare for 2026.
Nice. And improving your dad bod physique for more speed.
Oh,
and
yeah, I
inertia.
can't wait. 2026, I'm going to be looking real nice.
I love it.
Looking real nice.
That's so cool. So how did you two meet? How did you guys connect? Obviously, you're from here, Dr. Trayford. You practice here in Asheville, North Carolina. How did this happen?
I think we were talking about this, and I think it was a Christmas parade, downtown Christmas parade. He was the Grand Marshal that year, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a little after party at the Aloft Hotel downtown, and we both happened to be there and started talking. And I don't even know how long it was after that you started coming in here, but yeah, that was the impetus right there, a Christmas party.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I've seen that parade many times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was what it was. Yeah. I can't remember what year that was.
It's been a while. I mean, Manio's been coming in here for probably 5+ years.
It's been
now.
5+.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nice. Now, were you, if you don't mind me asking, were you coming in here for rehab purposes, performance purposes? What was like the main impetus for you coming in?
So for me, Apex does a lot of different things here. You have people that come in with TBIs, and then you have someone on the flip side like me that comes in for performance. So it's not necessarily dealing with an injury, even though sometimes rehab purposes, we can use the lasers and all those special things that we have here to take care of that. But more importantly for me, it's achieving at a very high level. You have to have some elite, I call them tools in your box. And for me personally, making sure that I'm physically trained is great. Emotionally trained is great, but if your mental is not where it needs to be, then none of that other stuff is going to work. I've learned that the hard way, and so I make sure that I take care of everything from head to toe, and it starts here. So that's why even today, like just coming in and getting that maintenance done. So it's just like oiling up a car or making sure everything's lubricated. It starts between the ears for me. So I'm able to go and then do the performance.
We're taking care of that 2 to 3% of the dad bod weight between us. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's I got to imagine when you're stepping up, either it's like a starting line or you've got the sled, those handles I've seen that kind of pop out and you're standing there. I have to imagine when you're competing at a high level, you want to make sure you've checked every box in your mind so that you're loose. Correct?
Oh yeah. When I step to a line at a track meet, or it doesn't matter if it's the Olympic Games or a backyard meet behind Lake Julian, like it doesn't matter. Like I'm gonna be prepared. I'm gonna be the most prepared mentally for sure. And I know if I'm prepared there, then everything else is gonna fall into place. And the same thing on the ice. Once I get to the line, I'm already prepared. I don't have to think about anything but just executing. And if more athletes would, gear towards that, I think we see better results, faster results, healthier bodies overall. So that's kind of how I look at it.
Love it. I love it. So Dr. Trayford, do you mind explaining some of the work that you've been doing with Manteo over the years?
Certainly, yeah. Initially, he came in for a 5-day immersive program, so I know you're familiar with those, Dr. Wells. But we have people come in about 4 to 5 hours a day, and they're going through all phases of the physical, cognitive, metabolic, and neurological rehabilitation. The metabolic end of thing, clearly gets tricky when you're dealing with Olympic athletes because of restrictions and whatnot. So we did some light things there, but really it's working the systems that feed the brain information. So visual systems, visual tracking systems, hearing systems, feeling systems, anything that feeds the brain information is a vehicle for improvement. Because if anything, when he's at that starting line or, that backyard race, it's really all about that brain taking the information in from that position or scene that he's in at that point and being able to integrate it to the point where he performs at his best, but also too being able to block out certain types of information. We just had him in here today for a tune-up, and there were a lot of people around watching as he's doing things, and he's trying to block all that out. And we were joking a little bit rusty on some of the equipment here, but still knocked it out of the park because once he gets going, he can just do that. He can just block out the stimulation because the system has been trained to be able to perform at such a high level that it can cut out extraneous information or unnecessary or irrelevant information and just really focus on what's relevant at that point, whether it's tapping a dot on a touchscreen TV or, getting out of those blocks as fast as he can.
We were just at a couple months ago at Trevor Berry's office in Arizona, and we had the privilege of interviewing Danica Patrick, the NASCAR retired NASCAR racer, and she was doing the exercise where you're tapping dots on the screen, and he's got like a record holder list right next to the TV of all the previous champions, and she was number 2.
All right. Well, we've got to get Danica's
we need
numbers
that.
And we
I will line up with her any day.
We'll have a tap off. Yeah.
Do you have a record holder list, a speed list here?
We certainly have. Yeah. We've got the folks, and clearly Manteo's at the top of the list in a lot of those things.
Are you number 1 on the list?
I would imagine.
Nice.
Now I want to go beat it again. Yeah.
But that's it's interesting when you're talking about athletes that are performing at a really, really high level. I gotta imagine that stuff matters. Mm-hmm. The split-second stuff matters.
Absolutely, because it is being able to be ultimately prepared. You look at some of the most elite athletes this day and age, that have career longevity, the Steph Currys and the Tom Bradys and people like that. They're training the real estate between the ears. The body has been trained. The body knows what to do. That muscle memory is there. But particularly as we age, we have to keep the systems that feed the brain information as intact and high performance as possible, because there's a natural decline of things. But as Manteo's seen, these things can get even better when we have more wisdom, because wisdom coupled with the the peak performance training is the best recipe for success, for sure. And that's why so many people are being more successful in their years, where they would have been considered aged out completely.
It kind of reminds me of I grew up in Chicago watching the Bulls, and Phil Jackson was a huge. Was one of the first coaches I think I ever heard talking about the mental game, and I'm sure it was around well before Phil Jackson. But what was he? He was known as what do they call him? I forget what they call him. But they had like a nickname. It was kind of like a guru type thing or whatever.
He was a very Zen guy.
Zen, the Zen master. That's what they called him. Yeah. And so are you incorporating some of that stuff here?
So yeah, when we look at electrophysiological conditioning, if you will, so we do look at EEG. So we're looking at brainwave output, all the delta, theta, alpha, beta, gamma, all the different brainwaves, and seeing where he's elevated in certain areas or somewhat lacking in other areas with certain types of brainwave activity that would be essential for focus and performance. We can do the thing that most people know is something like neurofeedback. But what we're doing now is we're using all modalities to impact brainwave output. So lasers, we can impact the output of one's brain with laser activity, and we show that. And we're actually doing a seminar here for Erchonia coming up here in May. That's going to be about lasers and brainwaves, but also too vibration plates, also too neurofeedback, also too audiovisual entrainment. So there's lots of things that can impact brainwave activity. We may have talked about this. I presented in Paris in September, somewhere around there, and it was all about the impact of whole body vibration on EEG activity. So just getting somebody on a vibration plate doing cognitive tasks and things like that can alter their brainwave activity in a way that they can do the things that people like Manteo need to do to perform at a higher level. So yeah, there's lots of ways to impact that.
That's got to be exciting for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's harder than it looks for me, but the end result is like I'm decreasing my reaction time, which is good. So I'm able to react to the environment that I'm in, no matter if it's on the track or on the ice. So I'm able to come up out of position and go right to where I need to go. Or in the weight room, I'm able to lift more weight because I'm physically tuned, mentally tuned. And then just obviously like body maintenance, being able to have access to the lasers and attacking those different, objectives that I need to get done. It's always been key for me to excel on the recovery end. A lot of athletes don't take advantage of that. It's like you can go out and have a great performance, but what are you doing after your performance that's helping you, or what are you doing to create that maintenance off the field of play or out of competition? So I'm getting ahead of the competition by doing the little things that take up time, but it's gonna help me in the end. So.
And two, Manteo touched on something talking about reaction time. A lot of these drills that he's doing are looking at very quantifiable, measurable markers of accuracy, reaction time, whether it's eye movements or hand touches, hand-eye coordination, memory drills, whatever it is, speed drills. And the thing is, when you hear these terms like reaction time, attention, focus, impulse control, these things are all highly interconnected. But at the end of the day, when somebody has better reaction time or better attention and focus, they have a distinct ability or an enhanced ability to self-regulate, meaning lower anxiety. This is huge because the same part of the brain that controls attention and focus is also the same part of the brain that helps us regulate emotional output. Look at ADHD. A kid can't pay attention to something and they can't regulate their emotional output, which is where the H comes in, the hyperactivity and the unwanted behaviors or the anxieties, if you will. So this is just much, much more than the physical. It really is much more of a brain thing, and the body is really more secondary to that.
Yeah, that's I think that's something that most people aren't even aware of. Mm-hmm. We think of the body as just this like physical thing. Yeah. Especially in terms of sports, it's like you have exercise and nutrition, and that's pretty much all you can do to enhance performance. But from what you're saying, is it really everything starts in the brain?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, it's all connected. Like I coach a lot of young athletes, and one of the first things we do is we work on reaction time. But it's like closing your eyes, and it's some of the things that I've even had implemented here. I kind of like scale it down for them, obviously, but it's like we start before we even touch a track or a field. If it's football players or baseball players, if we even get on a diamond, we're talking about like what can we do to create healthy brain activity. So we're doing things like that, and then we get into the field of play. And they're like, "Why are we doing this?" And I was like, "You'll see why." And you may not understand it, but you'll see why.
And how old are the kids that you're working with?
Anywhere from it's crazy to say this, elementary school, even up to like elite athletes.
Okay. And this is in what sport?
Any sport.
Any sport.
Yeah.
So you're brain training before you're doing physical training?
Oh, for sure.
And are you seeing a noticeable, measurable difference in start to finish over what period of time?
Within like weeks, month.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because they've never done it before. They've never experienced it. They've never taken the time to really see, like they've heard it. Like you need to be mentally fit. Like I'll push that on them every single day. You need to be mentally fit.
And they may be thinking like positive thoughts, like I can do it, like visualization type stuff, right?
So that's what these coaches are doing nowadays. But if you really want to get to the elite level, you have to do this kind of stuff. You have to really indulge into what it truly means to be mentally fit. Yeah.
I saw you before we recorded this. You were out in the rehab area catching a boomerang-looking device. So there was like red, green, and blue. And so Dr. Do you call him Dr. Z? Dr. Henry?
Z, yeah.
Dr. Z would throw you this little boomerang and say blue, red, green, and you have to catch that thing. It seems like a really simple game, and it doesn't look. However, it doesn't look easy, but it's a simplistic thing.
Right.
But those reaction times are probably difficult to train, or can be challenging to train.
Yeah, that's a very complex activity to do. Because you're doing more than just catching it. You're on what's called a sand dune. So you're creating, now you're influencing balance. So it's like activating the core and being able to stabilize all these different muscles to stay intact. Or if I'm off of it, I have to spin around while I'm hearing. Now I'm having to process. So I'm hearing this while I'm turning around, landing. So it's like visual, audio. It's so much involved in that one exercise. And then, I need to catch this, but catch it on the right color with the right hand or the left hand. Yeah. So it's very complex. But if you're able to do all those things and make it look easy, which I don't do that all the time. When you walked in, I was able to do it, which was great. But if you're able to hone in on all those different components for that one exercise, and you take a kid or even myself, like when I first came in and did these things, I didn't realize, that I was getting all these different objectives knocked off in one exercise. But then you start processing and you're like, okay, I did this, and that, and it was in one drill. So that's kind of like what you get here, it's like a full service in that one exercise. So yeah.
And one thing too that often gets overlooked, and I'm glad you bring all those components together and understand, the sight, the sounds, all the different things, and unbalanced. But the unbalanced aspect is one of the most important parts, because he's getting on an unbalanced surface, and once you're unbalanced, you start losing access to your frontal thinking brain. It's a protective mechanism. If we had to think about it when we're off balance, we wouldn't be able to grab onto something or prevent ourselves from falling. So as we decrease access to the frontal brain, thinking, attention, focus, executive function, all of that, by being unbalanced, now throwing all that other stimulus on top of it, you're dealing with maybe 1/10 of the access to your frontal brain being unbalanced, trying to do all that other stuff. It's just, that's where you get to those higher and higher levels of function when you challenge a system in that way. Because you can rehabilitate all these things separately, but when you can combine and layer and stack those therapies, that's where the magic happens.
As we're talking about this in context of sports, you were talking about things like attention, focus, emotional regulation. Those are things that everybody needs.
Absolutely. Impulse control.
Impulse
One
control
of the biggest challenges in our society right now, impulse control.
Yeah. In a lot of different ways. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm thinking, that's a huge problem with kids. We live in an era now where it's like 1 in 3 kids is on some kind of emotional behavior drug.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did I have that stat right? You must know the stats.
It's up there for sure. And the fact is, younger and younger. I mean, under 10 now, they're being prescribed antipsychotics, antidepressants. It's really troublesome, because there's much that can be done in many cases before. There's a time and a place, but there's much that can be done before it goes to that. But and most people that get put on them are going to be on them for life.
Right.
That's the challenge.
When you were doing that exercise, and I just thought of this as we were talking about thinking about the impact that this would have on everybody, not just high performance athletes. But I got to imagine, as in schools, as we start to move kids away from recess, away from gym, away from time with their friends, like as I saw that exercise with the boomerang thing, I'm like, we would do that kind of stuff on the playground.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're actually brain training when you're playing with your buddies in your neighborhood growing up, or playing with your brothers and sisters. Like that's all stuff that I did a lot of. I know, Dr. Trayford, you said you spent most of your childhood in the air on a BMX bike.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's one, I got to imagine some kind of brain training, right?
Absolutely. Well, when we weren't hitting our heads, yeah. When we were building, because back then we built our own ramps, and
that's right.
We were the test pilots and everything all wrapped up in one, but a little different now.
Pre-helmet days too.
Well, my mom was an ER nurse. I was the only one in the neighborhood wearing the helmet, so I got some flack for that.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Have you noticed, Manteo? So you're doing this for sports, obviously, training for the Olympics. Do you notice that the benefit has kind of spilled over into other parts of your life as well, off the ice, off the track?
Yeah, for sure. When you look at all these things, now you're looking at, like I keep pushing on recovery. So now you're looking at how you sleep, or like, I guess, how tired your eyes get, for example. I think Dr. Trayford and I were talking about, really honing in on like my visionary thing. So being able to, obviously that's big on reaction, or being able to adapt. So for example, on the ice, if I'm on the break, so I'm the very last guy technically I'm the third guy to get in. We sit down at the exact same time. But if my pilot gets in, and then what happened in Lake Placid in our one of our World Cup races is my number 2 guy actually slipped on the ice. And I was like, please get in. So now I have to be able to see where I'm at and know that I need to be in by a certain point, regardless of what is happening up there, but I still have to wait. And I also have to bring those handles in that they push off on the sides. Plus, I have to wait and know where I'm at on the track before all that even happens. So being able to have that brain training and where you're able to react at an instant, like it's just been beneficial, like obviously on the ice, but also off.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear this in bobsledding. I know nothing about the sport other than what I've seen on TV from the Olympics, but it's those little, when you're going 60, 70, 80, 90 miles an hour, whatever you do at the beginning of the track has a huge impact at the end of the track.
Most definitely. Like that's why the push it's inevitable that it's like the most important. Obviously, getting down the track safely is always a plus, and doing it as fast as possible is always going to be great. But initiating the braking and the inertia of that sled with 4 guys trying to gel together to do it the most consistently is usually who turns out to be the best. Because if we go 5.08 seconds on a start, which would be really good in Placid, we go 5.08 seconds, and then maybe the next sled goes 5:14. Obviously, we have an advantage, but those hundredths of a second at the top create tenths at the bottom because you're building speed as you go. But the faster you go here, the more speed you can pick up. So obviously, the start is more mental and it's physical and mental, but it's a lot more mental for me.
Love it. How have lasers factored into the work that you've done with Manteo?
So, yeah, we've used lasers from multiple perspectives. There's the obvious of when, he would have sprains and strains, things like that. But at the end of the day, we would use them coupled with other modalities. So if he's on you were talking about the tapping the screen, like, Danica and Manteo have done, that's the NSI, Neurosensory Motor Integrator. So we can have him on a balanced platform while doing the Neurosensory Motor Integrator, but for sure we're going to have a laser either at some point on his body or his brain while he's doing this. So it really depends on what we're looking to do from a clinical outcomes perspective, or what we're seeing neurologically with different eye movement exercises or different eye movement tests and things along those lines to determine where the laser placement will be. But we do a lot of brain-based laser, if you will, and then even gut function too. Looking at putting a laser on a gut is absolutely tremendous for, you hear about serotonin production and all of that, but also too balancing of microbiome, which is critically important for proper brain function. So going, we go much further beyond the sprains and strains, but it's also amazing to have, red, green, and violet lasers for the sprains and strains. We just did something, a little nod on his knee today, and put the green violet on there. And one of the new releases we were talking about, and he actually started feeling some things in that nodule, and it was just a little pocket of inflammation, and probably later it's going to be feeling a heck of a lot better. So from the quick fix stuff to the training between the ears, lasers have played a massive part.
I know docs listening to this, we actually have a lot of doctors listening to this, and also a lot of patients that listen to this, by the way, which is pretty cool. If they're listening to this and let's say you're a chiropractor or a physician listening to this and how do I implement some of the things that you've done with Manteo? Where would someone start with that? Because you're mentioning you do a lot of brain work, which I think would be intimidating to most providers, but you're talking about also knots on knees. So if I'm a chiropractor, oh, that's something that I could help, right. Or gut issues, that's something I could help. Yeah. How would a doc listening to this get sort of engaged in this type of work that you're doing?
Well, shameless plug, come to my seminar on May 12th and 13th.
I love it. I hope this airs before then. Yeah, we can make that happen.
Erchonia sponsored event. But we're going to be talking for 12 hours about this stuff, and it's a free continuing ed seminar. So, if you're in and around the Southeast, just make it on out here. We'll be talking about a lot of brain stuff, but clearly working in some of the other things. It's about education and dealing with companies like Erchonia that really have tremendous investment, psychologically, financially, resources, human capital, et cetera, into a company like this that's been around for so long and has done so much to move the, lasers out of the, kind of backroom esoteric type of treatment to the main, the mainstream forefront of healthcare where it's, at and going still, across disciplines, really. So getting to informational seminars, there's so many great doctors you mentioned, Dr. Trevor Berry, Kristen Heischetter, Kurt Geyer. There's just so many great docs doing seminars across this country pretty much every single month out of the year. So number one, getting in seats and learning, because I don't recommend anybody just pick up a laser and start shooting it at things and, and just hoping for the best. Yes, there's very few, if any, side effects in most cases, but you want to know what you're doing. You want to know the frequencies, the powers, the wavelengths, what they can do for cellular energy production, for pain reduction, for, for brain activation, for reducing inflammation, et cetera. So you got to start reading. You have to get versed on it. But at the end of the day, it generally does start for people with doing the musculoskeletal aspect of it. So the ligaments, the joints, the tendons, et cetera. And there's really not a lot that can go wrong with that. So that's where you start. And then getting into applications like gut laser and transcranial laser, there is a learning curve involved, and I recommend hooking up with doctors that are doing these things, learning from them, going to the seminars, and little by little. I'm at this 23 years, and I didn't just start shooting lasers at things. I learned a bit, even whether it's neurofeedback. I studied for a long time before I felt competent doing it to a level of a PhD psychologist or somebody else that would typically do neurofeedback. So I'm all about the learning curve, the deep dives, understanding what you're doing. But there are many, many readily available applications and protocols and things like that that can be had through the seminars and even some of the books that are out there. Dr. Urucha and others have resources that you can go to learn how to get started. Yeah.
Yeah, and another shameless plug for Erchonia events. They're always doing an event somewhere, and their events are awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really good. They have some of the best speakers I've ever heard.
Yeah, I just saw Kirk was in London, so I hope to make that next trip over to London because that's my favorite place.
Yeah, that's right. We're pushing to get the Laser Light Show overseas.
All right, count me in.
And we need guests. Yeah. You want to do another one overseas?
Let's do it.
You know London. You've been there.
London's a special place for me. We would love to go back.
I love it.
We'd love to go back. Yeah.
So as you're looking forward to the next 4 years in training, do you guys have a plan in place for help?
So
in training?
We were just talking about that today. Obviously with Manteo's travel schedule and, just being here and there at every competition, the Worlds, and, you name it. There's so many different things going on. So right now he's in place, and we're going to be doing some things before he hits it kind of, hot and heavy in the next couple of months because, heading into, summer will be gone before we know it, and he'll be back up in Lake Placid or out west or overseas, and, he's hard to get at those times. Yeah, but we've got a plan in action. We're going to do another immersive program, the intensive, get him in for 5 days. And it's amazing how a brain can change in 5 days, even a high peak performing brain, just taking those, like he talked about the track, hundreds at the beginning lead to tenths at the end. That's what we're doing. We're taking tenths of seconds off of reaction time and, improving accuracies and all of these different things we're doing. So that translates to the ice for him for sure.
Love it. Have you guys ever talked about using a handheld laser for the road?
Yeah.
Does that come up?
Yeah, absolutely.
You can laser yourself?
Yeah, we're on that too.
I love
absolutely,
it.
Yeah, we were talking about that at the grand reopening.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so that it's a must-have in the toolkit. I travel everywhere with my laser, so does this man need to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
That's also a shameless plug. Anybody listening, you want to get with me on the laser?
That's right.
We can do some things.
That's it. Awesome.
I want to see you on the sidelines training with lasers, just shining out of your pockets and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's Manteo again, sneaking onto the field.
Yeah, that's right. Well, Manteo, thank you so much for being a guest. This is a really cool podcast, and wish you all the best in your training in the next 4 years. I'm sure it's going to fly by, and very much I love the Olympics, and I want to be, my family and I'll be rooting for you.
2026, Cortina, Italy. I'll be there. I'll be watching. You guys watch.
I hope to be there
I love
too.
it.
Yeah, gotta come.
I love it.
Yeah.
Dr. Trayford, as always, thank you so much.
Pleasure,
Appreciate
Dr.
it.
Wells. Thank you, Manteo.
Oh,
Everyone,
no worries.
thanks for listening, and we'll see you guys on the next episode.
Thanks for listening to the Laser Light Show. Be sure to subscribe and give us a review. If you're interested in learning more about Erchonia lasers, just head on over to Erchonia.com. There you'll find a ton of useful resources, including research, news, and links to upcoming live events, as well as Erchonia's e-community, where you can access for free additional resources, including advanced training and business tools. Again, thanks for listening, and we will catch you on the next episode.